Vicky in Guayaquil. Can you read the English that is on page 1, 2? These are the opening prayers. 1, 2.
Yes.
Then 5. 5, that section in the Buddha Dharma 5.
Yeah.
And 6. So just one time each in English for these 4.
I make it all the way to May all mother sentient beings. Yes.
It's 1, 2, 5, 6. Yeah.
1, 2, 5, 6. Okay. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until body is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion.
Okay. So now we go back to page 1. I'm going to recite this in Tibetan using the style that is often done. So the first and the second, which is bodhicitta, relative bodhicitta in its 2 aspects, aspiration and engagement. When we recite this, our hands are usually in the dhyana mudra. Dhyana mudra is the meditation mudra, or you can also, place them just like on your knees, both hands. Then on page 5 is the refuge formula. For the refuge, that is when we do the Anjali mudra, what otherwise people call Namaste mudra, the Anjali mudra. So this Anjali mudra, a couple of details. Anjali mudra, the way it's done in the Tibetan, is that it's not held flat. In Thailand, people would greet each other like flat. And maybe in India too, you might see this. In the Tibetan, the way it's developed is like it's held like a lotus bud, right? A lotus about to open, pretty. And so then on this side is held like this, with the thumb slightly tucked in. And the idea here is to think that what is held within these 2 hands, so it's not just an empty hands, but what is held in the 2 hands, or you hold something in the 2 hands when you do the Anjali mudra, and what you're holding is bodhicitta. And so you offer bodhicitta. You offer bodhicitta as you take refuge. Then after the refuge formula, then go back to the dhyana mudra for the 4 immeasurables. So these are part of the conventions involved. As I've said before, we can relate to conventions in a skillful way, with understanding, with appreciation, or we can get carried away by conventions, or the third, we throw away conventions. So the middle way is neither to throw away conventions nor to get carried away by conventions, and it turns into something mindless and perhaps even superstitious. So the middle way is to engage conventions skillfully. In one aspect is to engage conventions skillfully. And the other aspect is to engage conventions with a sense of appreciation and awe towards the accumulated wisdom of past generations. All these past generations that have made it possible for us to continue to have these teachings and instructions to this time to us. So then we recall the kindness and the wisdom of the lineage of all those who have come before us. And so that's another reason to engage convention. So when we engage with conventions, these types of conventions skillfully, so when we engage with these types of conventions skillfully, then these conventions can contribute to our work, our task of being free from the confusion of samsara. Dhala dhava jebe dra no bar jebe ke tharba dan tam je gembe bardu jobra jeba tam je ge su jebe ma nanga dang nyambe senjen tam je de wa tang den dung yao dang zhe ne du la na me ba yang dabra zobe chanju rimbo je dobra jai dala dangwa jebe dra nobar jebe ge tarba dan tam je gembe bardu chopra jeba tam je ge su jebe ma nanga dang nyambe senjen tam je dewa dang den dung ya dang zhe ne du la na me ba yang dabra zobe chanju rimbo je dobra jai dala dangwa jebe dra nobar jebe ge tarba dan tam je gembe bardu jobra jeba tam je ge su jebe ma nanga dang nyambe senjen tam je dewa dang den dung yao dang zhe ne du la na me ba yang dabra zobe chanju rimbo je tobra jai de je du sama gegi bardu lunga izum ge wala go ma shi bardu lunga izum ge wala go de dere ne sunde ne ma san da samgi bardu lunga izum ge wala go. Now page 5. Zangye judan soge jonam la chanju bardu dane kyabsu je dhage jinso kibe sonam ge drola penchir sangye drubra ju zangye judan soge jonam la chanju bardu dane kyabsu je dhage jinso kibe sonam ge drola penchir sangye drubra ju sangye judan soge jonam la chanju bardu dane kyabsu je dage jinsu gebe zonang ge drola penchir sangye drubra ju manang kada nyambe senjen tamje dewa dang dewe gindan dembra gyurji dungyao dang dungyao gi gyudang drawa gyurji dungyao mepe dewa dangme drawa gyurji nering chadang nidang drawe dangyam la nebra gyurji manang kadang nyampe senjen tamje dewa dang dewe gindan dembra gyurji dungyao dang Dunyao gi gyudan drewa gyurji. Dunyao mebe dewa dangme drewa gyurji. Niring chadang nidang drewa tangyang la nebra gyurji. Manang kadang nyambe senjen damje dewa dang. Dewe gyudan dembra gyurji. Dunyao dan dunyao gi. Gyudang drewa gyurji, dunga mepe dewa dangme drewa gyurji. Nideng chadang nidang drewa tangyang la nebra gyurji. And then to page 8. So this page 8 is the one verse that summarizes what is known as the sevenfold puja. So again, now in the Anjali Mudra, whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. 长子我当究竟上八当，即是依然苦行所我意，给我众生大义之上爬，他们却总被长久屈我。And now we'll take just a few moments to let body and mind settle, to let them settle into their own places. Let the activities of the mind or the activities of the heart find their own way home. No need to force them, but invite them, the activities of the mind, the activities of the heart, to come home and rest. There is the heart mind, and then there is the activities of the heart mind. Just for now, take a few moments. Let the activities of the mind come home to the mind. Let mind settle into its own place. Then let all the different processes of body settle into their own place. Let them find their own place. Let them be at ease. Let body and mind meet each other on this seat in this moment. On this seat in this moment. From moment to moment to moment. Every moment, a fresh meeting of body and mind. On this seat in this moment. On this seat in this moment, in the room that you are in, which is in the house that you are in, which is in the neighborhood that you are in, which is in the part of the town or the city that you are in, which is in the specific state, the specific country, and all the way out into the 3,000 great thousand world systems, right there in the center, on the seat, in this moment. Take your place. and rest in that place. If you need a little more than this, then you can think and scan all the stresses that you are feeling, whether these stresses are kept literally up in your head or on your shoulders or tight in your heart or perhaps bundled up in your guts. Wherever you feel that tension, now try to feel that tension or that heat or that stress flowing downwards, into the ground, out of your body into the ground. Or if you feel particularly inspired by the experience of breath arising and ceasing, then you can also turn your attention to this miracle of breath arising and ceasing. The felt sense of breath arising and its ceasing from moment to moment. Or if you are inspired by the Lojong method of engaging breath, then breathe in with compassion, breathe out with loving kindness. Breathe in with compassion, breathe out with loving kindness. But if we can just sit and let body and mind settle and is content to not need to do anything else, then just do that. Now please turn to the Tara text, page 5. Homage to Tara, noble and sublime. Homage to Tara, swift and courageous. You drive away all our fears with Tara. Savior is fulfilling all aims with the Ture. With syllables Swaha we offer you homage. Homage to Tara, swift and courageous, gazes as quick as flashes of lightning. From Lord of Triloka, his face like a lotus, you rose on a billionfold blossoming stamens. Homage to you with a face that resembles a meeting 100 full moon in autumn, and who with the brightness of stars by the thousands shine in a vast perfect light of resplendence. Homage to you, the golden-hued lady, whose hand is adorned by a blue lotus flower. Your scope of activity is giving exertion, fortitude, peace, tolerance, meditation. Homage to you, the victorious, boundless, from the Tathagata's crown emanated, those who obtain every transcendent virtue. Offsprings of victors rely on your guidance. Homage to you, filling realms of desire, its aspect in space with the Hong and Tutara. Sevenfold worlds under feet you can trample. You bring all and everything under your power. Homage to you who is worshipped by Indra, Agni, Marud, Vishwara, and Brahma, all the Vetalas, Buddhas, Gandharvas, as well as the Yakshas give praise in your presence. Homage to you who by threat and the pet sounds crush every magical heal evil forces. Right leg extended and left bent you tremble. Within whirling flames you are blazing intensely. Homage to you, the swift terrifying, who conquers the most tenacious of Maras. Knitting the brow on your lotus-like features, you slay every foe without an exception. Homage to you with your fingers in mudra, adorning your heart to show the three jewels. Your masses of light are beautiful swirling, connecting with every direction in circles. Homage to you from your crown manifesting, joyous, majestic, brilliant garlands, with the great clangor of laughter to Tara. Demons and worlds are in your domination. Homage to you with the magnetized powers, who gather protectors of earth in assembly. With syllable Hong in your brow which is frowning, you liberate every poor destitute being. Homage to you with the crescent a moon crown, while your adornments so brilliantly sparkle. An Amitabha is placed in your top knot, ceaselessly vast rays of light radiating. Homage to you seated in flaming garlands, engulfed in the fire like the end of the Kalpa. Right leg extended and left bend defeating enemy hordes with your joy-bringing swirling. Homage to you with your palms you are striking the earth while using your feet to be stamping. Regally frowning with the Hong letter, you shatter the sevenfold layers of locusts. Homage to you, blissful, virtuous, and peaceful. Enjoy the domain of the tranquil nirvana, fully possessing the Om and the Swaha. You overcome even the greatest of evils. Homage to you who, encircled by joyous, utterly smashes the forms of opponents, clearing away with the hung of awareness, arranges the mantra of tenfold of letters. Homage to you with feet stamping Ture, fully presenting the form of the Hong seed. You cause the three worlds to all be a tremble, including Mount Meru, Mandara, and Vindhya. Homage to you in whose hands is a deer marked, shaped like the Deva's ocean of nectar. Sound of the pet and the twice uttered Tara, without an exception dispels every poison. Homage to you who is asked for your guidance by rulers of Devas, by gods and Kinnaras. Your armor of joy, a radiant brightness, removes every nightmare and calms every quarrel. Homage to you whose two eyes are shining with brilliant light like the sun and the full moon. By Tutara and with the thrice chanted Hara, you clear away even infectious diseases. Homage to you who can come down completely through the array of the threefold thatness. Crowds of Vetalas, Buddhas, and Yakshas, suppressed with the Ture sublime Mother Tara. Together with this the root mantra in praise form. These were the 21 verses of homage. So these 21 verses of homage to Tara is something that many Tibetans probably as a child grew up memorizing. I remember one of our teachers, main teacher, Genchen Kwanjo Gyaltsen Rinpoche, talking about how growing up as a child, he would hear his mother singing this as she went about doing her morning chores, cooking breakfast, getting them ready for school or dressing them. She would chant these 21 verses because she has memorized. And so many Tibetans grew up hearing this chant at home, their mothers, because most stay-home mothers raising their kids. The fathers would know too, because the fathers would have heard it from their mothers. And then when people went to temple, people were circumambulating stupas, they would be chanting these 21 verses of praise. These 21 verses of praise, each verse in each of these verses are picking up on, you could say, symbolism and expressions that resonated with the Indian cultural context. So throughout India, before the rise of such a figure as Tara, and after Tara has been known, there has been and is a whole pantheon of female divine beings venerated, worshipped all over India. From goddesses that are universally known in all parts of South Asia to those that are particular to local areas, particularly in local areas, there are these goddesses that are associated with both disease, as in the control of diseases and protection from them, but also seen as the same sources of disease. So they they can spread disease, and they can control disease. Then there are, like, kind of pan-Indian goddesses. So Tara would be a pan-Indian goddess among Indian Buddhists historically. Among Indian Buddhists, Tara is regarded as, understood as a fully awakened being, a Buddha. When we say Buddha, we immediately think of Buddha Shakyamuni, because Buddha Shakyamuni is the template for us to think about Buddha. But Buddha is not limited to a particular form. And this is especially emphasized in Mahayana and Vajrayana, that Buddha is not limited just by a particular form. So the form of the monk in the three robes of a monk, the form that Buddha Shakyamuni had, that then became the template for more generally Buddhists across all Buddhist traditions. This form is called the Nirmanakaya form. In other contexts, Nirmanakaya refers to something slightly different. But here we're talking about the iconographic representation of awakened beings. In other words, the iconographic representations of Buddhas. So Buddhas can be represented in the Nirmanakaya form, which then refers to the three robes, male, with the protuberance here that looks like more like a top knot, the way it's painted now. And most of us think this is a bundle of hair. Actually, it's not. According to the 32 major, 80 minor marks of a Buddha, it's actually a growth, a fleshy mound. So, of course, now it's stylized into like this top knot, And people think, oh, this is a bundle of hair. But no, actually, it's a little protuberance, like a growth. So anyway, that form. So if you're participating like in the 35 Buddhist practice coming up, then all those 35 Buddhas are represented in Nirmanakaya forms. What is known as Nirmanakaya forms. In the case of Tara, well, first, the form that she predominantly manifests is female. And then she wears crowns, what's known as the Sambhogakaya ornaments. So again, here, Sambhogakaya is used, there is the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. That, in a different context, is talking about something else. Related, of course, but now, again, I'm talking about iconographic representation. Like, how do you represent Buddhas? So when you represent Buddhas in the Sambhogakaya way, then they are adorned basically with ornaments, with jewels. So a crown, then it is said there's the 13 Sambhogakaya ornaments. 5 types of silken garments that they wear, and 8 types of jewelry, such as like earrings, short necklace, long necklace, armlets, bracelets, anklets. So, and then the 5 silks, like the lower wrap, upper kind of like a scarf. So those are the 13 Sambhogakaya ornaments. And those 13 Sambhogakaya ornaments, like, the Nirmanakaya 32 and 80 marks, these 13 Sambhogakaya ornaments are symbols of Buddha qualities. Yeah, so in the Sambhogakaya form, they could be male, they could be female. And usually like with, long hair. And then it is a top knot. It's a hair tied up. So that's Sambhogakaya form. So Tara is a fully awakened being, a Buddha, and a Buddha that predominantly manifests female forms. This is related to the particular vow that Tara took when she began, when she first kind of made that strong and unmistaken and stable resolve to become Buddha. She made a vow that she will, from that lifetime until the lifetime of being a Buddha, always take on a female form. And therefore, even after she has been awakened, predominantly her forms are female. And in those female forms, some are peaceful, like the main representation of Tara, like green Tara, white Tara. Some are extremely wrathful, more than 2 arms, very fierce and ferocious looking. Sometimes I think the English word wrathful miscommunicates. Maybe better to say fierce, like fiercely wise, right? We don't say wrathfully wise in English, it miscommunicates sometimes. Wrathful people think, like Buddha's having a bad day, Krodha in Sanskrit, Chowo. I think better translated into English as fierce, So when Buddhas take on a fierce form, they are fiercely compassionate. They are fiercely, quick in acting. They are fiercely protective. And they are fiercely, intolerant of nonsense. Fierce in that sense, right? So Tara can also manifest as a very fierce mother, very stern mother. As well, she can manifest, very soothing, very encouraging, very nurturing forms, and everything else in between. So these 21 praises eventually gave rise to the notion of there being 21 different forms of Tara. Now, of course, those forms of Tara, in many ways, you can see, mirror all the different goddesses that Indians were fans of all over the Indian subcontinent, the South Asian subcontinent. And so then, Tara kind of absorbed these forms. Then so much so that now, like especially I know Garchen Rinpoche will say, he said, in my mind, there is no difference between the Virgin Mary and Tara. Because he said, these are the same qualities. So likewise, like in Catholic cultures, there are so many forms of the Virgin, especially in Latin America. And you go to any cathedral, any church, like every altar has its own, form of the Virgin. So there are so many different forms of data, but this expresses the Mahayana vision that Buddhists, right, meaning those who have broken beyond bondage and confusion. So those who have become liberated and those who have become freed from all confusion. So the Mahayana vision of Buddhists as pervading all places. So Buddhists pervade every inch and every corner of the Dharma Dhatu with no limit. Because Buddhists, by definition, are free. Including, they are even free from having like will and intention the way you and I have will and intention. Yeah. So when you and I want to do something, we have to think, I'm going to ... right? Whether explicitly or implicitly, right? Some thinking, some will, some intention is at work. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, right? Even the reflex of like, I'm going to move away from that, vehicle that's coming really fast. For a split of a second, there's the will, there's the intention, right? But Buddhists don't have that. Buddhists don't have that dualistic mind, which is what underlies our will and intention. Yeah? So when we say Buddhists are active in the world, they are not active the way you and I are active in the world. You and I, our activity is powered by the force of the three poisons. Buddha's activity, called Trinle in Tibetan, Buddha's activity, Trinle, is not driven by the three poisons. Buddha's activities are driven by the power of their vows. So that's why tremendous emphasis on making aspirational vows in the Mahayana tradition. To make vows, to make aspirations, because how powerful you're going to be as a Buddha. Not that you should be, like, I want to be powerful, but how your Buddha activities will manifest after we are Buddhas is dependent on what kind of aspiration vows we make now. Yeah. So the aspirations that we make now creates the conditions for us to connect with sentient beings when we are Buddhists. Even though, from the Buddhist side of things, they are all absolutely equal. Their freedom, equal. Their all-pervasiveness, equal. Their Buddha qualities, equal. Where the difference is in how well they connect with sentient beings and the confusions of sentient beings. And that, it's said, we are taught, depends on the vows that we make now, the aspirations that we make now. And that's why when we make aspirations in the Buddhist tradition, we usually don't write our own, Sometimes I think some of us say, Buddhist prayers, is so impersonal because it's not like from me, right? In fact, it's not an accident that we don't emphasize using your own words and pray. Instead, we use the words that have been used by other great beings of the past, because these are their aspirations. So we want to model ourselves after their example, after their aspirations, until we get to a certain point when our, you could say, research of the different Buddhas with their different vows, the different Buddhas and their different aspirations. So we make the aspirations of Amitabha, aspirations of Avalokiteshvara, the aspirations of Manjushri, the aspirations of Akshobhya, the aspirations of Maitreya, and so on and so forth, right? And they all have their different aspirations, their different vows. So when we repeat those aspirations and vows, what we are doing is we are doing contemplative research on all the different ways that all these great beings, how when they were on the path, what aspirations they made, what vows they made, Samantabhadra, Manjushri, what sorts of vows they made, what sorts of aspirations they made, so that when it comes time for us to make our own aspirations, then we are ready to make sincere and powerful and authentic aspirations, so that then in the future, whatever name you become known as Buddhas, then people will say, people will be repeating, like, maybe you become a Buddha with the name Vicky. So then Vicky's aspirations, in some time in the future, some world system, Dharma practitioners will be repeating Omar's aspirations, Brianna's aspirations, but not the, not yet on the Bhumi's aspiration. Those aspirations come and go, even now, oh, I'm so inspired to be a Buddha. I want to be a Buddha in this way and that way, but unstable, these kinds of aspirations. But the aspirations that come when we are on the Bodhisattva Bhumis, on the Bodhisattva levels, those will then provide real impetus, so that when we become Buddhas, those aspirations spontaneously fulfills the needs of beings. So Medicine Buddha, for example, made a lot of vows that have the healing medical circumstances. So then Medicine Buddha's activities after he becomes a Buddha resonates in that direction. Amitabha's vows pertain to Medicine Buddha also had vows that pertains to his Pure Land, for sure, but not predominantly what is known. Likewise, Amitabha, right, as Dharmakara Bodhisattva, his vows had to do with providing the best environment, for Dharma practice, for swift and effective Dharma practice without distraction. So this is what we call Sukhavati, the land of ultimate bliss. So different Buddhas have different vows, different aspirations, and it's the aspirations made while on the Bodhisattva Bhumis that will then ensure the Buddha activities to continue endlessly when the Bodhisattvas finally become Buddhas. So there's a tradition of making these aspirations greatly emphasized in them, especially in the Mahayana context. When I say Mahayana here, then you should understand that Mahayana is speaking of having the Bodhisattva resolve is what makes it Mahayana. We're not talking about sectarian labels. We're not talking about Chinese Buddhism or Japanese Buddhism, Likewise, when we say Hinayana, we're talking about the context and the focus. We're not talking about Theravada. We're not talking about Buddhism in Cambodia. That's a confusion of categories. Likewise, when we say Vajrayana, we're not, we're not talking about Tibetan Buddhism. We're talking about a particular level, a particular context of the Buddha's teachings. Some of you who have hung out with me long enough, consistently enough, like this is one of my things that I repeat again and again and again and again. Because I think there's a lot of confusion. Because now we are exposed to so many forms of Buddhism. And each form of Buddhism uses these terms, these vocabulary slightly differently. Yeah. Because, they use terms differently. So in the Tibetan seminaries, Tibetan Buddhist seminaries, not all monks and nuns go to seminary. In fact, historically, a very small number go to seminary. The rest of monks and nuns throughout Tibetan Buddhist history, they don't go to the seminary. Only those who are deemed by, their community to really smart, really intelligent, they send to seminary. Shedra. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because at some point, I don't know how far back this goes, I remember His Holiness Drugong Kyabgun, head of our lineage, he said, at least in recent years, meaning like in the last few hundred years, he said the trend became such that young monks that are sharp and intelligent, then the local temple or monastery or village will say, oh, you have what it takes, so we're going to send you to go to the seminary, to the Shedra, and get educated so that you can become a great scholar, because highly valued in Tibetan society. If you're not born in the aristocratic family, then that's the only way, really, you kind of gain some prestige. So yeah, of course, the 8 worldly concerns is there. That's why we'll look at Gampopa, saying, make sure your dharma is not in the service of 8 worldly concerns. But the reality of Buddhism being state religion, right, in a culture, is that, it's completely involved with the 8 worldly concerns, So, no choice, So the smart ones, they send to Shedra. Then the not so smart ones, but sincere, they send them into retreat. And that is unfortunate. Because then it's almost like, if you're not so, smart, you go into retreat. But sincere, they have to say, oh yeah, you have some sincerity, go into retreat. So then this kind of split between, the really smart and the retreat oriented. And of course, in the early days, it's definitely not this kind of a split. But that happened over time. So anyway, this is just some background, so that we have some awareness of, what we're dealing with. So let's see. How are you all doing? If you have any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would you say that based on what
Tell us who you are, where you are.
Oh, I'm Robin, and I'm in the mountains of Western North Carolina.
Oh, okay, good. Did you all get a lot of snow?
Not a lot. Up high, it's much, up high, yes, but down low, it's all gone today.
Oh, okay.
So can we say that the individuality, if they're, even if to use that word, but of the Buddhas based on their aspirations, is that how their sort of unique
Yes.
individuality is
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
identified? Yeah.
For sure. You know, like the individuality of Buddhas on the relative level is definitely there. No issue, no problem, you know. I think this is one of the misunderstandings that we have, which is poetically we say, you know, all Buddhas are one. But we don't mean it like, say, in some Hindu traditions, like all is one and one is like Krishna or Vishnu. We don't mean one in that sense. Yeah, we mean one in the sense of same. Chikpa, one, same. Chik is also one in Tibetan. Chikpa is same. So like saying you and I are same, as in we have the same aspiration, same intention, same purpose. That's same. We are same in being equally free. Same. We don't say, you know, like when you become enlightened, your mind stream merges with the mind streams of all beings. We don't say that. I mean, maybe that's what happens, but we definitely don't express it that way. I mean, what do I know, right? I've not been there yet. But we don't express it in those terms. Yeah. So the individuality, it's okay. We can say that. They don't have egos. But do they have individual characters? Well, apparently. And determined by, yeah. You and my individuality is mostly the product of our kleshas. Buddha's individuality is a product of their aspirations and vows. Yeah, exactly as your question puts it.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding
Tell us who you are.
Oh, hello, I'm Lucrecia and I am from Guatemala. I'm very happy to be part of this Sangha. Yes. Okay. So our country is been calling itself for years and years the country of eternal spring. So we cannot comment on on extreme weather. Sorry. Okay. So when you said Buddhas are free by, well, free by definition, but you said they're active in the world. And when they're active in the world and they're driven by their vows,
but not active in the way that you and I are active, with intentions, with plans, with.
Okay, yeah, but is it similar to the Christian conception of angels and archangels that are there?
No, not in that way.
Okay. Cannot explain which is the way, or yes? Can you explain?
Just not in that way.
Not in that way. Okay, and just
angels definitely jump around with plans, you know.
Sorry.
Angels definitely, the way we think of what do I know about angels? But the way we think of angels is, you know, they have plans, you know, they have, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We say no, Buddhists don't operate like that.
Okay, and my other comment is that I don't know if in the West, but for me, when I see the iconographic representation of the fearless figures, I believe that it's because I'm not used to this kind of drawings culturally, that they make me a bit afraid, you know. I don't relate to them, but definitely it's because I have a lot of ignorance in that area. But is it really cultural? So Is that like the way the drawings are in general in the East, or
A wide range. There's a wide range of representation.
okay,
Yeah. Even for Tibetans, it's a little strange,
okay.
but they're used to the strangeness.
They used to be
Tibetans
strange.
didn't always have this, they got it from Indians,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then when they got used to the strangeness, then they had, they add to the strangeness even more. So yeah, there is a reason there too, it is saying that appearances are not reliable.
Mhm. Okay.
We know that, some people look very sweet, but you don't know what's behind that. Some people never smile, you also don't know what's behind that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Some people will smile all the way to, swindling everything you have. Yeah, so appearances are unreliable.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Dr. Lai,
Yes.
I have a question. Not sure if it's exactly appropriate here.
Who are you? Where are you?
Oh, my name is Fabiola, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. Originally from Colombia. So I'm just wanted to share here in my altar. I have actually a Tara and a medicine Buddha.
Uh-huh.
And when I first learned about Tara, I was very happily surprised, right? Identified as a woman, and a woman's body was like a woman.
Mm-hmm.
What a change in a male patriarchal world, like in most religions. But then my question is more historic. Like, I know there's nuns now in Tibetan Buddhism, but was there a period where women were like not allowed to be nuns anymore? And how did that, I mean, because there's Tara, but then like, I think women were not given that many opportunities.
Well, just because they are goddesses doesn't mean that women have more opportunities. I mean, look at India. India has endless goddesses, I mean, whoever said because there's goddesses, women will do better? I don't think so.
But okay, but back to like Tara's aspiration, right? And then individuality. She said she will keep becoming back as a woman precisely for some of those reasons, or no?
Yeah, exactly. It's more to say, like I'm going to take the hard way. Yeah, that was what whenever this story first came up, the people who heard it that way and say, oh wow, she's really brave, she's not taking the easy way out. The easy way out is to be a man, and to be a man born in a rich family. Tara said, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Historical language, historical story, oh, it's complicated. All I can say is that, it's not that surprising. Men have dominated everything. So go figure. So on that level, in a way, right? I mean, we are here now, So that's what we need to change here, Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what is your question?
But well, I guess my question is, I don't know what my question is really. It's in a way, it's just surprising. Maybe it's more an observation that there's Tara, and she seems to be so important in Tibetan Buddhism all along. But I know that in recent years, His Holiness Dalai Lama and
it's the same. Like there's Virgin Mary, Latin American women, doing better than, Scandinavian Protestant women.
Yeah.
Right?
Could I add something here? I'm Christina
Mm-hmm.
from North Carolina, Asheville.
Yes.
Could I add something?
Yes.
I think of her as the mother of all humans, mother of all beings.
Yes.
That's how I think of it.
Yes.
There was an age, and there was an age where Siddhartha was still, where Buddha was enlightened, and there were nuns that were there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were women that were there that wanted to become nuns.
Mm-hmm.
His whole family wanted to become part of what he was, but he did not allow women because he was afraid of what society would do to them if they went out on their own begging for food like the men do.
Mm-hmm. At first. Yes.
So the way I think of Tara,
But it didn't last long.
it didn't last long. They eventually they came up to Buddha and said, "We're going to become nuns, or we're not leaving."
Yeah.
So he accepted them.
Yes. No, I mean, Buddha's view about, whether men or women is very clear. Otherwise,
Yeah.
Then there's human society and dominance and all of that, So what to say about the past? Not much, except, surprise, surprise, What matters more is now.
Yeah. So in today's world, in 2021,
Yes.
I think of her as Yam Tara, which is Mother Tara. I ask her for advice. I greet her. I pray to her. I do aspirations with her, and in turn, she helps me out. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, there's things that come by. There's little voices in my head that tell me not to do this, or this is coming, or that's coming. That's part of, and that's part of it. And as for the iconography,
Yes.
like you said, it's from India, and the Indians had her before, and then all of a sudden Buddhism has to have a host in order to pass all these because oh, come on, brain, because Buddha had to have all these deities of people, so the Tibetans, so I guess the Tibetans would calm down. You remember Abhava. So, iconography, and they became evil deities at one time. And then Baba Sambhava tamed them, and they became guardians of the Dharma. So, and then we started adopting all these deities of people that were used to be Hindu, or Hinduism, and it became Buddhist for a time. Now they're back. Now India is basically Hindu, I think now. But that's the way I understand it. So you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm crazy, whatever.
So anyway, complicated, for sure.
Yes, it is.
A lot of historical issues, cultural issues, but
Yeah.
the important point is in terms of our practice, I think some of these issues, it should be clear, that insofar as becoming awake, is there a difference or not? Fundamentally, no. Now, how do cultures and cultural expressions continue to limit and oppress? That, yeah, we can look into it for sure. But of course, not quite in this class. not quite in this Sangha meeting. So without naming names, there is a book called Echoes of Enlightenment, The Lives of Sonam Peldren, published by Oxford University. Look up the book if you want to have some understanding of what was going on in one case in 14th century Tibet, a woman, Sonam Peldren. She was a woman and she was married, had a spouse, but she was a great practitioner. So there are these names that and individuals that because of patriarchal dominance, they might have been known within their lifetime in 1 or 2 generations and then disappear, because no one carried on their memory so strongly. Doesn't mean they were not there,
Book
Yeah.
again?
It's called Echoes of Enlightenment. Oxford University Press. Came out in 2016. We have 54 people here today. Out of this 54, the author is here. Yes. So anyway, look up the book if you want to read more about.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions or comments?
Okay, I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
When Robin was talking about, no, I don't know, it wasn't Robin, it was our friend, the lady from Guatemala, the fierce, ferocious deities.
Yes.
For example, I love Ushnisa with her fangs and her ferociousness.
Yes.
And she's surrounded by all these bad guys. And when I am, doing her sadhana, her prayers, and I feel her power, I love that she's ferocious because I feel that these things that I am putting in charge of her, she's like really what we commonly say a badass. And I love it that she's ferocious. Okay, that's what I wanted to say.
Yes.
That she's like Christina says, my mother, she loves me, and she's like super Tara, and she's ferocious, but she's on my side.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the things I would like to leave there about these wrathful deities. They're on our side. Okay, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, my point is not that we cannot learn from the past. Of course we can. But what I was trying to say also is that I think Tara and all her manifestations, the sweet ones, the cuddly ones, and the ferocious and the fierce ones, I think it's a good, in our, 2021, I think for me, it's a good way of saying we don't need to typecast someone and say, oh, you are a mother, you should behave this way. Oh, you are a father, you should, be this way or that way and that way. That, just like Tara, fundamentally, she's Buddha. So that's the most important. As to how Buddha is going to appear, as to how Buddha is going to work with, it's a resonance between their fundamental vows and aspirations, meaning like, when they first worked on these vows and aspirations, it's a dance between those aspirations and the karma of sentient beings. So this is interdependence. So yes, there are also many Buddhas that we have forgotten already, their names. Does it mean that they've become less? No. There are other universes, there are other places where their activities continue.
wanted to add a little story here. It's interesting. I love Tara. I feel a strong connection and love Kurukule, that version in particular. Feel a lot of protection. And so I hear Tara mantras a lot, especially Kurukule. And my son, who's an 11-year-old boy, loves that one. He just loves Kurukule. And he goes to bed, he turns the iPad, puts Kurukule, right? And so the image is this wrathful, sexy woman, sometimes popping up like half naked. But to him, it's like his bedtime story. I'm like, that's so cool that there's nothing to be said there. It's just like his thing to do before going to bed.
You might also want to have a word with, get some tip from Tim.
Tim, okay.
Yeah, Tim Cross. His girls growing up with Dharma, the times that they have to pull the girls aside and say, don't say that at school, okay? So yes, so so he has a lot of experience having to say to the girls, don't say that at school, okay? It's okay we talk about this at home, but
Dr. Lai?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't see whether you can hear me or not.
Yes.
I find that every mother, I'm a mother, my children are now grown, but I find that almost every mother I know is an emulation of Tara. At least she runs through almost the entire gamut once a day. I find,
right.
And practicing those things, we all find a lot of similarity between the different. Hopefully we don't get angry when we get wrathful, but we certainly get wrathful. We certainly get almost everything on the list.
Yes. So as I mentioned, like our urban Dharma main shrine, there is a Buddha, and right in front of the Buddha is Tara. I think it's a good balance, Ultimately, Buddha's, male, female, and hermaphrodite, and everything in between, trans, because Buddha is not like the point, Guru is not body, it's not body, it's not shape, Buddha is not body, it's not shape, but because sentient beings have bodies and shapes, and therefore Buddhas manifest bodies and shapes. But some of the old kind of, historical things might continue to replicate those conditions of, kind of trapping and controlling certain groups. And so, yeah, to that degree, we really need to be aware of that and not replicate those. And so luckily, like urban Dharma, we are not a Buddhist tradition that insists that Buddhas should only be represented in the male form. I mean, there are Buddhist traditions that say that, and there's they're not out of sexist reasons, but that's their kind of tradition. But we got it easy because we are somewhat parked in the Tibetan Mahayana tradition, and so we can just put Tara there and say, yeah, that is Buddha too. Like, why not? I've said in the past, like, for example, another example, we read in Gampopa, for example, jewel ornaments and other places, right? Like how human life, human existence is the most precious insofar as having the ability to gain freedom from samsara. That there's no other realm better than the human realm. So that's standard Buddhist teachings, But I have a lingering suspicion that, when the Buddha was teaching, like my favorite, I don't know why I don't really like them that much, but every time I use this example, I say, when Buddhas are teaching geckos, I'm sure the Buddha is saying, you know what? The life of a gecko is the best to become a Buddha. I have a suspicion that's what's going on in the gecko world. Again, as Mahayana Buddhists, we say, Buddhas pervade everywhere. So when Buddhas are teaching geckos, Buddhas are not going to tell the geckos, your life sucks, you've got to wait until you are human before you can be awakened. I'm sure he's speaking gecko talk and say, oh, geckos, you are so lucky. And today you have met me, the gecko Buddha, and I'm telling you everything you need to know to be free, Yeah, I believe that, because based on the principles that we understand, that, Buddhahood pervades all life. And so, since, we are humans and we're receiving the teachings as humans, then we say, this is the best. Yeah. Since I'm in a male body, I have to say, this is the best. You are in a female body, you have to say, this is the best. You are in a young body, you have to say, this is the best. You're in the old body, you have to say, this is the best. We can always be dwelling on, oh, I don't have the best, and either complain, right, that I don't have the best, or complain, why you say that is the best and this is not the best. Forget it, leave all that alone. Yeah. Where you are standing, that is the best. Where you stand, where you are, that is the best. In that sense, we say, wherever we stand, that is the Pure Land. Because when the mind is pure, the land is pure. The Pure Land is about, the best circumstance for practicing Dharma. So wherever we can put down distractions, wherever we are resolved to put down distractions, that we say, okay, I don't want to be distracted anymore. Right there is the Pure Land. But of course, it's all empty talk if we just walk around going, oh, this is Pure Land. Oh, this is great perfection. Oh, everything is Buddha. But that is not our experience and that is not our reality. Then we're just walking around, like entertaining fairy tales. That doesn't work either. So we, wherever we are, whatever circumstance that we are in, there is always a way of looking at it where it is not enough. There's always a way of looking at it where it is not enough. Even those who were with Buddha Shakyamuni, they complained, not enough. Then there's another way of looking at things where it's always just enough. And if we can kind of remind ourselves, to be able to see wherever we are to say, oh, this is just enough. Too much you are afraid, like, oh, I have to guard this, Someone might take it. Just enough is perfect, Just enough. You're like, oh yeah, this is just enough. Perfect. Then, yeah, no other Pure Land but right there, just enough. Otherwise, never enough. Never young enough, never old enough, never male enough, never female enough, never rich enough, never poor enough. There'll never be enough. Now, 4 Dharmas of Gampopa. The text that I shared last time, and today an email was sent out as well with this text. So basically there are 3 what I call root texts that I have included in this handout. Later I will share 2 longer commentaries written by, one is by one of Gampopa's main students, Pamodrupa, who is the teacher of Jigten Sumgan, so in the Drigong lineage, one of the lineage masters. And then another one by Gampopa's close student, Gompa Sutram. And then if I'm not lazy, or if I can strong arm someone into typing up one commentary by Jigten Sumgan, then we can put 3 commentaries together in a handout. So if there's anyone who wants to volunteer to type up this, basically it's a booklet that Mei Ma helped me scan. It's only half of this. The other half is in Tibetan. The English is only half, or less than half, maybe a third. If somebody wants to type this up, then I can put 3 commentaries together. Anyway, what we have first here is the root text. So if you look at the root text, which is on page 1, that is, I've arranged them shortest to longest. Shortest to longest. So the shortest one is this one called so this is an excerpt taken out of this longer text known as Compilation of Fragmented Talks of the Dharma Lord. So here, the 4 dharmas, the precious Guru says, there's the dharma that turns toward the dharma that turns toward the path that dispels delusions, and delusions that appear as wisdom. So this is the main kind of, like you can say, formula. Yeah? And as I mentioned last time, exactly how each line is explained, it varies. Even within Gampopa's collected works, called the Dakpo Gambum, you see that in different circumstances, Gampopa will say slightly different things for each of these 4. So first thing is, don't be surprised by that. Likewise, these formulation of the path of the process, path means process, okay, in Buddhism. Path means your process from going from a state of being confused to the state of clarity, from sentient being to Buddhas, right? So this process is summarized by these 4 progressive stages. And so depending on who Gampopa was talking to, he kind of divide things a little differently. So no surprise, then the next generation, his immediate disciples, you will see some differences. Then even beyond Gampopa's spiritual family, so they say, Gampopa's spiritual descendants, right? Beyond that, like very famously, Longchenpa, a great Nyingma, one of the synthesizers of the Nyingma tradition, Longchenpa, he wrote a commentary using, or rather you could say maybe not even a commentary. He used these 4 stages in order to present his Nyingma Dzogchen path through these 4 lines. So in that sense, these 4 lines are very flexible, because it's so skeletal. It provides the basic kind of structure whereby the different systems can fill in. So the same bone structure, so to say, yeah, where the difference is, it will build up, a slightly figure depending on the context. So if we look at this shortest one, it says, right? So to unpack the first line, dharma that turns toward the dharma. The formulation dharma, meaning the word dharma here, refers to the fact that one needs to trust in the law of karman, or we could say karma usually. Karman is a more Sanskrit correct. Cause and result. That turns toward the dharma refers to that all wholesome deeds one does will not be stained by concerns for this life. So when we talk about concerns for this life, again, it's easy to misunderstand, and think, oh, it's talking about like forget about this life, your reward is in heaven, you might think, oh, this is a Buddhist version of that same old stuff, like, oh, this life doesn't matter, then you postpone, like your reward is going to be in your next life, is in heaven, It doesn't mean this. Yeah. Here, what are concerns for this life? So in the longer commentaries for this, they all discuss what is known as the 8 worldly concerns. And the 8 worldly concerns is good, like for our Dharma knowledge base, to actually memorize and remember what these 8 worldly concerns are. And these 8 worldly concerns are basically divided into 2 columns. The desirable column and the undesirable column. The desirable column is pleasure, gain, praise, and fame. Pleasure, gain, praise, and fame. The undesirable column is the opposite of the 4. Pain, loss, blame, and defame. Defame, the opposite of fame, like a bad name, bad reputation. You're famous, you're infamous. So these are the 8 worldly concerns, So it says, don't let your Dharma practice be stained by these 8 worldly concerns, or 8 mundane concerns. There's a lot in this world we should care about, the environment, because when that is destroyed, then the weakest and the poorest among us will be the ones in the forefront of suffering. For that reason, we care, right? So, yeah, there are a lot of worldly concerns that we should be concerned about. But when we say worldly concerns here, it's not saying, oh, don't care about the world, oh, you live in a democracy, don't care about voting. We're not saying that, or at least I'm not going to say that. Yeah, so there are a lot of worldly things, like, better water, better treatment of the weak and the powerless, yeah, those are, I think, those are worldly concerns that we should care about. But even with those worldly concerns that we care about, we should care about them without being stained by these 8 mundane matters. Now, of course, these 8 concerns will always be there until we are Buddhists. So I don't think it's an either or. But when we remember that there are these 8 mundane concerns that we should try to be free of, then it helps in whatever it is that we're trying to do, whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. Say like in your workplace, if you see, right, a unhealthy workplace, and you want to improve that, you want to change that, to the degree that the 8 mundane concerns don't poison your efforts, to that degree, what you are doing is virtuous, which is this issue about that your wholesome deeds do not become stained. Your positive karma, that's why the discussion about karma. Even it's saying, forget about negative karma, that which is explicitly negative, right? Wanting to harm people, wanting to cheat people, wanting to take advantage of others. I mean, that's clearly already negative. If you didn't know that by now, you should, So that's already settled, that issue. Here, it's more concerned about even what you think is a good thing, what you think is virtuous, what you think is beneficial. Be careful that the 8 mundane concerns don't spoil that good. That's why Dharma, turn towards the Dharma. Even what you think is Dharma, dharmic, meaning good, meaning righteous, meaning truthful, if it is tainted by, if it is poisoned by the pursuit of the 8 worldly concerns, then it's not Dharma that turn towards Dharma. So here it's saying, all your good intentions, all your efforts to improve something, to do something better, especially there, don't be pushed by the undesirable winds, and don't go chasing the desirable winds, but remain unmoving in the midst of these 8 winds blowing and blowing and blowing. You stay the course. In all the dharmic activities that you are involved in, that you are investing your time with, stay the course and don't get blown by these 8 winds. Of course, quite naturally, like we want the desirable column and we don't want the undesirable column. For all of us right now, if the 4 desirable columns is blowing, we're like, oh man, life is good. I'll be the first to admit, Now, it's not saying that you cannot like enjoy that and say, oh yeah, those 4 in the desirable column is happening more and more and more, But don't get addicted. Don't chase that. And know that the other 4 from the undesirable column can be just right around the corner. One thing that I think Jongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, I think he said, his teacher, Dingpo Khyentse Rinpoche, he said one of the things he's been growing up, raised by Dingpo Khyentse Rinpoche, is that Dingpo Khyentse Rinpoche is very honest. And so whenever, people came to complain about Jongsa Khyentse, when he was a naughty teenager, very playful and, causing trouble, people would come to they will cancel Rinpoche and complain and say, oh, Rinpoche, this Dongsa Khyentse, he did this, he did that. And each time the Gokyense Rinpoche will say to Dongsa Khyentse, today so-and-so came and told me about this or about that. Be very honest, and then Dongsa Khyentse said, then he'll get upset at these people, Then the Gokyense Rinpoche said to him, don't do that, I tell you because, there's no hiding here. Yeah. Then he said to Dongsa Khyentse, he said, so you should behave as according to your title, according to who we say you are. Right? But then also always remember, if you hear about 100 people criticizing you, you can also probably find 100 people praising you. And if you hear 100 people praising you, it won't be that hard to find 100 people criticizing you. So know that. So it's almost like the relative truth, ultimate truth. It's not one or the other. You hold both at the same time. So it's also important when we say, oh, don't be concerned with the 8 worldly concerns. Don't let that become, like the wrong reason to say, oh, I don't need to care about what people say, what people think, right? And become an excuse to act, right, in ways that are harmful. So elsewhere, the Buddha did say, shame, like we normally, like I think we think, oh, shame is a bad thing, But actually in the Buddhist text, like in Pali, I think it's hitta in Pali, it means shame. It says, no, shame is a powerful deterrent. Again, if we can use it skillfully, it should be a deterrent from creating negativity. Negativity is what? Is actions that harm others. Sometimes I think like Buddhist practice is so focused on inwards that it can become narcissistic. And we have to be very careful about that, We think that everything is about me. Then the more Dharma practice we practice, the worse it gets. So especially in the Mahayana tradition, it's always about the other. So when we create negative actions, right, we have to think about how is this impacting others, Even as much as we say we have to look at how it harms ourselves, but don't dwell too much on that because it can indirectly feed self-grasping. More like see how our actions are impacting negatively other people and recognize the pain that we are causing others, and on that basis have regret or remorse. So to that degree, right, we need to be careful not to like destroy our, because elsewhere it's also said, especially if you're practicing the Bodhisattva path, you should be careful not to destroy your reputation. Yeah, but this is a different way of caring about your reputation. This is not part of the 8 worldly concerns. This is caring about your reputation out of Bodhisattva concern, right? If you alienate everyone, how in the heck are you going to be helpful to anyone? Right? So on the relative level, It says we need to harmonize. We need to harmonize with whoever we are working with. Not the kind of harmony that is, the 8 worldly concerns. I want to be liked. I want to be praised. Then it turns into, right, unskillful maintaining harmony. No. Harmony based on a higher reason, which is understanding that only when we are harmonized with others can we be meaningfully good for others. So one of the quotes from Jiten Sungen in one of his teachings, it's an interesting one, I just shared on Facebook. It says, even if you think about all the ways, he's talking especially to his Lama disciples, right? His kind of disciples who are going to be teachers to others. He says, even if you think of all the ways that you think you can benefit others, like giving empowerments, giving vows, giving teachings, giving instructions, he says, but if you cannot kind of fulfill their wishes, then it's not going to help. Then the quote, the next words kind of take an interesting turn. He says, and therefore, give up grasping. Give up grasping. It's like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. How do we connect these two? So the connection is that how we fail to fulfill other people's wishes, what is the impediment of fulfilling others' wishes is our grasping. My grasping, my agenda, my plan to save the world. So then I'm not listening anymore, right? I'm not paying attention anymore. I'm grasping on my agenda for world peace. And then why aren't the rest of you signing on to my plan for world peace? It says you have to give up grasping. When we give up grasping, then it becomes possible. It becomes possible to fulfill the wishes of others. Now here we're not talking about, oh, you want ice cream? Here, ice cream, right? Oh, you want money? Oh, here, money, We're not talking about, we're talking about fulfilling their wish to be free. But before you can fulfill their wish to be free, it's saying you need to have resonance with them. They need to be comfortable with you. So to that degree, yes, of course, especially not destroying your reputation, not making people not trust you, all of that is important. Yeah. So don't misunderstand, when we say, oh, like your good name, is unimportant. It's the pursuit. It's being addicted to the column of desirable and the fear of the column of the undesirable. So sometimes they're called the 8 winds. Right? So when the winds are blowing very strong, then we can be blown out of shape by these 8. But borrowing the analogy of winds, if we know how to harness these winds, then they become workable. So the first line here that talks about Dharma needs to turn towards the Dharma is linked to Atisha's 3 stages of spiritual evolution, often called the three types of individuals. But again, I think that is a mistranslation. It's a literal translation. Atisha has a way of teaching the stages of development by talking about the three categories of spiritual maturity, often called the three types of individuals, which is the lower, the middling, and the highest. And the lower, the middling, and the highest pertains to those who have taken up what we call like spirituality. And the baseline for how can we say someone has taken up spirituality, according to the, again, there are some differences here and there, but the basic definition is usually it's when you do not make decisions simply based on immediate gratification. That would be my translation. The literal words would be, you are looking beyond this life, and not just, the pleasures of this life, and escaping pain from this life. But you're looking beyond this life, it says. When you begin to practice or act with a temporal context that is beyond this life, Atisha says, that is when you have begun on the path of spirituality. So to translate to maybe a language that, maybe easier for you to understand, I would say it's when we stop, becoming impulsive and short-sighted, and can only be inspired by temporary, happiness, and caught up in temporary suffering. Like when we're suffering, when we're in pain, the difference between, whether we are on the spiritual path yet or not, is if you're not on the spiritual path, all the suffering that you're experiencing, which, suffering is experienced in the present, just like happiness, right? But all the suffering that you're experiencing, you cannot think beyond this moment. You just think, this is so terrible, this is so bad. I want out, I want out, I want out, Then you're not seeing like beyond this, But if you're able to see beyond this, Atisha says, then, this is the mark that you have embarked. Likewise, the happiness that you're feeling now, you also see kind of the ephemeral nature of that, because you can see beyond this moment. It's not saying that you become paranoid, like, oh, when is something bad going to happen? When is something bad going to happen? It's not. It's just understanding that this is temporary. So when we begin to look, express as beyond this lifetime, right? Then this here doesn't become so heavy. If it is suffering, it doesn't sink you. If it is happiness, it will not deceive you. Right? That's the problem with happiness, being stuck with the happiness here. It deceives you. The problem of being stuck with suffering that is here is it sinks you. Both, when you have an understanding. No, it's, you have to see, you have to look beyond this lifetime. That is the lowest, the beginning, let's say, the beginning level of a process of spiritual evolution. And this corresponds with the first Dharma. The second is the middling. Yeah? And the middling is also part of the first Dharma, actually. The middling is saying you evolve into the middling level of spiritual evolution when you are not only are you not limited by happiness and suffering in the present. You can see beyond the present, but you can also see that if all you're doing is just keep seeing beyond the present, to next lifetime and next lifetime and next lifetime and next lifetime, and don't see that as long as you continue to exist, right, in a limited and confused way, then in every lifetime, you still will not solve this problem. Yeah, so you achieve the middling when you are determined to be free. Not just free from the limits of having happiness and suffering of the present moment, determine everything. Not only freedom from that, but freedom from even the happiness of next life. That you can see even beyond that, and say that, well, there is something that is outside of this cycle. That is when you become middling. Then you become the highest, the third type, the highest when you think of others. When the bodhisattva resolve appears. And that is, according to these four dharmas, the second. If you look at the second, that turns toward the path refers to the following. Since all wholesome deeds that one does are caused by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, one will dedicate them to the benefit of others. So meaning, before, on the first dharma of Gampopa level, or the equivalent of Atisha's small and middling level, the skillful actions that we do, they are motivated by not wanting suffering and wanting happiness, not just this life, but beyond this life. And then not just beyond this life, but completely out of this cycle. It becomes the greatest, or it enters into the second dharma, when the same virtuous activities that we engage in are now motivated by something completely different, which is motivated by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta for others. Bodhicitta here then means, because of love and compassion for others, we are now resolved to become Buddhists for the benefit of others. And that is when we are in the second, the Dharma turn towards the path. So this path here, this process here, even if we began with the understanding or the motivation of a process to free us from unhappiness, free us from confusion, now we're motivated by freeing others. So the second Dharma, this is the path, is the Bodhisattva path. That the Dharma has turned into the Bodhisattva path. The path of cherishing others rather than self-cherishing. So, questions? Comments? It's a lot. Yeah. Let it sink in. Yeah. But if there's like technical things or, you know, that I can easily answer, now is a good time. We're already past our 9 o'clock. Don't want to keep you here too long. No? Good. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. This small question is about the meaning of the word trust.
Trust. Yeah.
In
Good.
this,
To trust the law of karma. Yeah.
So I like to hear, please, what.
So that means, you know, to be convinced that happiness and suffering don't come from other people, don't come from God, don't come from nature, but happiness and suffering that we experience are the results of our own creation. That is the most, I would say, the main point of cause and effect of the law of karma, or karma, the law of karma. The main point is that happiness and suffering don't fall from the sky. And happiness and suffering is not accidental. Happiness and suffering is the result of causes that we have created. It could be causes that we create 1 minute ago. It could be causes we created a year ago, a lifetime ago, 10 lifetimes ago. But still, they are causes that we have created. Yeah. And to gain trust in that is to say more and more, you know, when we trust that, then even as we're suffering, let's say right now, you know, we're suffering a lot. Yeah. We don't need to suffer in such a heavy way when we understand that, oh, this is the ripening of something that was done in the past. There's no one to blame, not even yourself, because, you know, the past self and this self are connected, but they're not the same self. So much has happened, you know, so much has changed, right? So it's also not, you know, sometimes we think, oh, karma means, you know, I'm responsible, you know, it's me, you know, bad me, poor me, you know. That is a wrong understanding of karma as well. Yes, it's a cause that was created in the past, but the past you that created it and the present you, they're not exactly the same you either. So you don't need to beat the present you over what the past you did. But you also cannot say, what? I didn't do anything. I don't deserve this. This is wrong. This is wrong. It's the middle way. That's why Buddha's teachings say it's the middle way. It's between these two extremes, you know. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Or, hey, I'm innocent. You know, you are all the reason why I am suffering. Buddha also rejects that.
And in that way, in that way, is something like don't refuse the suffering, but is not going to search only happiness. It's like because when you are looking more happiness, you makes that the suffering increase. I don't know how to say
Yes,
it.
don't feed the suffering, and don't, deny the suffering.
Okay, we can feed the suffering, searching more happiness.
Yes, we can feed that suffering if we say, I don't want this, I hate this, like, why can it be like that? Why can it be like that? Then we've just created more suffering, right?
Thank you.
Mainly I think, with suffering it's a tightness. It's the feeling of not having space. It's feeling like, there's more suffering than there is space to contain the suffering. That is, what, in large part, that is how suffering oppresses us, right? It's when we feel like I have more suffering than I'm able to hold. So if you expand your container, then it can flow. Then you're not stuck, it's not limited. Other spiritual traditions have ways of helping, as well. I remember, at the university, one of my professors, he's Muslim, so he likes to say, when he sees us graduate students, becoming stressed with this or that, he at one time he said to me, he says, God do not put any burdens on anyone who cannot handle it. Then he said to me, God is looking favorably at you. I was like, yes, but can you look not so favorably sometimes? So that's their way of talking about this, But our way of talking about it is, it's like, in part, we feel suffering is so terrible, so hard, because, we feel like, there is more suffering than I can handle. Yeah. And so that's based on a very tight sense of I. But if we can relax, so to give up grasping is another way of saying, if we can give it more space. And sometimes when we say give up grasping, it sounds like we're saying, bad, you have grasping, so you suffer. So another way of putting it is, give it more space. Be more spacious. Give it more space. Give it more perspective. Give it more air. Let it air out. Or my favorite example, like don't lock a bunch of cats, in a closet. Definitely don't lock yourself in a closet of cats. And they're going to claw each other and claw you to death. So if you're going to have a bunch of crazy cats, take them to a big meadow, Yeah, they're going to fight when they first arrive, but soon they all go out, and find their own spots. Same with our suffering, Give it more space. Okay, so we're going to end here for tonight. I will update you. There's a slight chance that next Wednesday we might not meet. But we'll update you on an email. Then for those of you who have signed up for the LOSAR 15, 16 days of practice, you should have gotten an email today with information on the text to download and to go over. and also a picture, some pictures of the 35 Buddhas that you could print and put on your shrine for this program. There's already a question that was asked. So in the text, in the notes in the text, it says, when you're doing this practice, you should, not eat meat, garlic and alcohol, and you should try to be celibate, all of that. All these instructions are basically like best case scenario. Do all these things. But the point is, to do some practice is better than to do no practice. So whatever your circumstance allows you, you do the best of those circumstances. The Buddhist tradition is not like other, I think, more kind of literal traditions, like either or. Or at least in this tradition, especially, it's a general, I think, in many Drigung Kagyu lamas and styles, it's basically some is better than none. Do the best you can. We never say, oh, if you cannot do X, Y, Z, you cannot come. No. Some is better than none. Yeah. So you should have gotten an email if you have registered. If you have not, that means your mail reader is hiding that email from you. So you need to go find it. And in there also, I asked for volunteers to read. And if you can be one of those, you should email us and tell us. I think it's going to go to info@udharma.nc. So if info@udharma.nc can compile, or rather forward the information to info@Drigung Dhammakirti. The people who say we want to volunteer, to be readers. Then I just need to get that information. Yeah. So Fabiola is one of our volunteers answering info@udharma.nc. So Fabiola, if people ask about, that thing about you cannot eat onions, this, that, all that, the standard answer to write back is don't panic. Do to whatever degree you can. Just join the practice. Yeah. Good. So dedication at the end. So if you can go to page 30, 29. At the bottom of 29. By the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. By the blessings of the truth of the Kagyu Gurus, the excellent 3, Idams, Dhakinis, and Dharmapalas, may the spiritual and temporal places of the tradition of the second Nagarjuna flourish. Whatever harmful, discordant faults may arise, may they be pacified, and may there be abundant prosperity and happiness. May the teachings of the great Drigung Paranashri, the all-knowing Dharma Lord Master of Interdependence, continue to increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. By the power of the virtues collected in accordance with the teachings of the pure realizations of the unmistaken teacher, may the teachings of Ratnashri of Drigung, the protector of the 10th on the 10th Bhumi, flourish perpetually. You all have a good night. The lanterns and the song offering. We have a few more lanterns left. So if you all want to subscribe to that, you should send.
And the question I was asked there was, can the names for the lanterns be of people that already passed away?
Yeah, I answered you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So your question is, you got the answer, right? Or you just
Yes.
want this group to understand? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it can be for people who have passed away. Then all you need to indicate is like in memory of.
Mm.
Okay.
Then it will be written that way. Yeah.
I put one for Sandy Jones.
Yeah. So you want to put like, in memory of, or dedicated to,
Yeah.
More neutral is just dedicated to. So then,
Who do we send the information to? Fabiola?
it's in the email
Which
that was sent out.
sent out when?
If you registered for the LOSAR, then that email would come. If not, if you didn't register yet, if Fabiola can be so kind to forward you that email, then that will work.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll send it, Judy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we can register you, Judy, from the back door in terms of the participation of the 15 days.
I thought I registered, but
Well, if you registered, then the email is there. If it's not there, again, it's hidden somewhere in your mail reader.
Well, I registered as well, and I didn't get the email.
Well, it's hidden because we all,
I got your other one today for this.
That's the only one.
Oh,
I only sent one out today. So I'm not sure what you did not get.
I think she's referring to she got the 4 dharmas, the document from.
Oh, that's
DDIS.
different. That's the Trigon
Yeah.
Dhamma Kirti.
I think that she's
Yeah,
referring
that's
to that
a
one.
different. You have to go look for info@udharmanc.com.
yes, I know. I usually get everything you send me.
Yeah, so it's hidden away. It's automated, So it's not something that we like. Oh, we didn't send it to you. We send it to them. It's an automated list, so it went out. So if you are missing that after you search and you cannot find, you should write to info@udharmanc and say, I didn't get it. There are glitches, of course. Emails. I mean, who knows what happens? My point is like it's an automated list. We don't go in and say we'll send it to these people and not send it to those people. Yeah, there are a few emails going out. So that's also, sometimes. This one went out, this one meaning the 15-day of practice email. It went out at, I think, 5 a.m. this morning, Eastern time. It was scheduled for 5 a.m. this morning.
So you're saying that you can still sign up for that?
Yeah, until February 9th.
9th, yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. All right.
But the sooner you sign up, the sooner you get all the information you need.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you wait until then last minute you get a whole bunch of information that will be maybe overwhelming,
Okay. Okay. All right. I see it now.
Yeah.
It was down. I had to scroll down.
Oh, the email?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you just have to do a search on your email for info@udharmanc.com. Yeah. Do a search for your email. These email readers are mysterious, how they hide things. And then what is hidden, it's hidden. You don't even know it's not there. That's the problem of ignorance. We don't know what we don't know. Okay, ta-ta.
Thank you, Dr. Lai. Thank you.
Night, thank you.